Can I get a show of hands? Have you ever seen the show Undercover Boss? Anybody? A few people. Okay, looked it up. It's actually been on for a decade on CBS. I've seen it a few times, haven't seen it lately, but it's a pretty interesting show. On that show, it's a CEO or an owner of a business goes undercover as a new employee at their own business. And, nobody knows that it's actually them. And, there's some cover story as to, well, who is this new person and why are there cameras following them, right, to cover that up. It's someone who won a contest, they're going to be in a promotional video for the company or something like that. And the whole purpose of the big boss doing this really is, to experience firsthand, directly, no filter, what their employees experience every day in doing their jobs. And so they work right alongside their line staff, and, they are tested by customers, not all of whom are reasonable, by coworkers, not all of whom are reasonable, and the very conditions and processes that their employees are tested by on a daily basis that the company imposes on them. And in concept, the big boss will then learn what they can do using their position of authority to make things better for their employees, for the company as a whole. Make the situation better than it was before they came. And also, typically on the show, the big boss ends up working with at least one or maybe two people who they are just kind of blown away by. They're like such good employees. They're the ones you want to clone, right? The ones that put in 100% every day. They've got a great attitude, amazing customer service. They come up with good ideas, just good people. And they also, as we do with our coworkers, eventually we kind of share about ourselves, our personal lives, and they often find out about these folks that they have something they're, struggling with or that's weighing them down. And at the end of the show, typically the big boss will call in one or two of these folks and reveal that, it was me, the big boss, working alongside you all this time. And then they'll, tell them how amazing they are and how impressed they were with them. And then they often do something really nice for them, so maybe they learn from them that they've got crushing student loan debt. And the big boss will say, you're so awesome, you're so great for the company, I'm paying off all your student loans. Tens of thousands of dollars, and the people are like, oh, this is amazing. Or maybe they promote them on the spot, or they put them into management training so that they can become a manager in the company, something like that. And what's really great about the show is the whole premise. The big boss does not have to do this, right? And maybe there's some self-promotion. They know they're going to be on TV or, publicity for the company or something like that. But, they don't have to do it. They certainly don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars on the employee at the end of the show, even if they were going to do the show anyway. They don't have to do it. They could send somebody else from their company. They could do employee surveys. They could, do other things. But these folks choose to go and live the daily experience of their employees. In that way, I think Jesus is maybe the ultimate undercover boss, right? When he came, he was pretty much undercover, right? He wasn't announced, just like the bosses aren't announced. They're actually hidden, right? They even disguise themselves. Jesus came, he wasn't announced, here's the Messiah. Nope, he was born into a very simple, common family. As we said in our St. Joseph prayer this morning, at one point they were even refugees, right? He was no obvious royal as the Messiah was expected to be. Simple tradesman of carpentry. And when he began his ministry, he still didn't just declare that, right? And in fact, as he started to work miracles and preaching with such authority and people were starting to follow him, he would often tell them, like, don't tell anybody about this miracle I just did, or don't tell anybody about who I am. He wanted to maintain that cover, the messianic secret, as the church refers to it. He didn't just choose to decree our salvation from a heavenly throne, which he could have. I mean, God could have worked out our salvation any way God wanted to. God chose to come as one of us in the person of Jesus Christ, to experience every facet of human experience. And that's what the letter to the Hebrews spoke of this morning when it said, we do not have a high priest, a Messiah, a God who is unable to sympathize with us, because he chose to be one of us, to live our experience, and as the letters to the Hebrews said, was tested in every way as we are, as those undercover bosses are when they work alongside their employees. And as those undercover bosses, who in their experience are trying to figure out how to make their company better, right? Jesus, as that ultimate boss, isn't just about fixing some company. He came to fix everything, to fix our world, to gain for us our ultimate salvation. And as Hebrews says, we have thus the ability corporately as a world to receive the mercy of God through him. And when we have particular needs, to find grace for timely help, as those undercover bosses do something timely for their amazing employees out of their generosity. And I think, like many things in life that we experience all the time, we see all the time, our families, our friends, the beauty of our world, so many things, we start to take things for granted because that's just the way they are. And I think one of those things that we often can take for granted if we don't think about it is just how loving and generous our God is. That he chose to become one of us to save us, not to just decree it from some CEO office, from some heavenly throne. In the gospel, Jesus reminds us, as he says, how human rulers lord it over them, make their authority felt. But not so for Jesus. And as he reminds us, as his followers, not so for us in how we are to live. We are called to likewise have an attitude of service. Jesus gave his very life. We are called to give our lives, not often as martyrs, though some are called to that, but we are called to give our lives in terms of our time, our treasure, because in doing so, we then participate in our salvation, the salvation that our ultimate undercover boss, Jesus Christ, chose to give his life for, even though he didn't have to.